I would like to tell you a story. And it's about a creature, and you've experienced this creature and you haven't realized it. I'm going to tell you a story about this creature. And this creature has affected all of it. In fact, it's affected our parents. It's affected our grandparents, our great-grandparents. This creature's been around for a long, long time. And they're here with me this morning. And delightful. Now, this creature has a name. This creature's name is Office. Office. You see, once upon a time, there was a place where Office lived and where Office stayed. And for our grandparents and our parents, they would usually travel to go and see Office. Now, Office was our pet. We were the master. And we knew where Office stayed, and we knew where Office lived, and we knew where Office belonged. And Office was in its rightful place, if you like. And, you know, we'd come and see them. And if you happen to have an experience or an environment where you had to do some work, your work, if it took place different hours about different days, you know, maybe yours was a Monday to Friday. And so you'd come and see Office on a Monday. And then at the end of the day, you'd go home and you'd leave Office where he belonged, you know, in his crate. And so Office stays in his crates, and you went home. And maybe you had one that worked in the nights, or maybe it was very early. And wherever your office was in a place, and you went to that place, and you saw Office and left Office there. And the funny thing was, whenever it hit the weekend, if it was a Friday, and finally it's Friday, you know, and you would go home, and you would leave Office in Office's place, because Office belonged in his place. And you left Office there. If it was the weekend, you just didn't hang out with Office. Office lived there. If you went on holiday or had a day off, Office lived there. And what happened was Office started to get a little bit jealous. See, Office is like all little creatures, you know, they want more and more of your attention. They want more and more of your involvement and more of your affection. And Office started to, you know, occasionally you'd have to spend a couple extra hours here and there. It was a project, and that's understandable. You might spend a bit more time. And, you know, an Office liked it when you spent extra time with them. And occasionally there was a moment where actually something had to be done. And so we spent a bit more time maybe on the weekend. And Office really, really liked it. You know, Office just loved it. It was just like, man, Office was so happy for you to spend more of your time with them. And then Office was like, hang on a minute. How come I have to stay here? I would like to go with you everywhere. In fact, hey, why don't you just bring me home tonight? And it happened, like there was this one moment, and all of a sudden, you know, there was lots of work and lots of files and lots of paperwork, and I had to bring it with me. And so, Office came home. And, you know, it was there, and you're trying to have dinner with the family, but Office is there. You're trying to hang out in the evening and maybe watch TV or watch a movie or go for a walk, and Office was there. You know, and it just happened once, you know. It was just that one day. It's a one-off because it was really busy and there was lots going on, and so we had to kind of, you know, just do it that way. But the more you feed things, the bigger they get. And so as we fed this creature got hungrier and hungrier and decided to make more and more demands, because all of a sudden Office thought, well, why shouldn't I just come home with you every night? In fact, why shouldn't I just stay with you the whole weekend? You know, it's okay. It's a Saturday morning. I know you've got other things to do, but why don't I just hang out with you? Why don't I go on holiday with you? Hey, why don't you, while you're sitting in that airport lounge, realize that you can get a bit of work done? You can just get a little bit more things done. Yeah. And wait a minute. I know what. How about I figure out how to go with you everywhere for every moment? Because how about I stop being confined to a crate in a certain place, and all of a sudden, if I move into your smartphone and your laptop, I could go with you everywhere, anywhere. And in fact, as soon as you get 2 or 3 bars of signal on your phone, I'm there. I'm ready to do some work with you. You know, I'll go with you to the coffee shop. I'll go with you to the bookstore. I'll go with you to the beach. I'll go with you everywhere you want to go because office just wants to hang out with us. And something happened where we used to be the master and office was the pet. Now we've become the pet. And office has become the master. And if you're training a pet, you know this is true if you've got a dog. There are certain times when your dog needs to learn and you have to put the dog back in its place. Has to go back in the crate. It's where it needs to be. It's where it belongs. And I don't know if you've noticed, but over time, because our grandparents didn't do it as much as we do. Our grandparents didn't take office with them everywhere they went all the time, but we do. Our grandparents didn't have 24/7 instant availability, you must respond now sort of lives, but we do. And something's happened in our culture and happening where productivity and efficiency is making demands on us, demands that we cannot keep. It's controlling, it's bossing, it's like we have become a pet. And it happens financially as well, doesn't it? Sometimes we get into financial situations where we're no longer in control of our finances because our finances are controlling us. And that which we should have been the master over is now mastering us. It happens, it shifts. And is this really living? Is this really living? And what does it cost to live like this? What's the real cost for us to live lives like that? And in such a way, this productivity and efficiency has been ramped up so much so that we can reach the end of a day where we have done a lot of work and feel like we've got nothing done. You ever have one of those to-do lists? And it's so funny, you've got these to-do lists, and as soon as one thing drops off the top, it's like two of them of bread, and they're just crawling up the bottom of the page. You're like, the heck did you come from? I swear this list was getting smaller, and then all of a sudden it's multiplied. We don't even feel like we get stuff done even when we do get stuff done. Because the demand for being efficient and the demand for being productive is just ramping up. But we're not the only ones who suffer when we live this way, are we? Think about the ones who are closest to us, our friends, our spouses, our church friends, small group people, the other people around us, our children. They're the ones that experience it, the fallout. When I bring office home on the weekend, who is it that suffers the most? It's the ones closest to me. I become unable and unavailable to you, to my children, to my wife. You don't even have to be married to know that when you take things home that demand your time, that you lose time somewhere else, because we all have 24 hours. Small groups that we can't attend because all of a sudden it's bitten off. It's taking control. The moments I can't be part of because it's taking control. It affects all of us. Is that any way to really live? I mean, what is it costing us to live that way when other people are suffering? And society gives us this idea that one day I'll take a break. One day I'll get there. One day I'll be generous. One day I'll be able to do this. When I look at my diary and I can see my diary is clear in 6 months' time. And in 6 months' time, when I get there, I'll know just these next 6 months, as soon as I get through this time, as soon as I get to that period, hey, it's going to be so much better. But the funny thing is, 6 months ago, your diary looked clear as well. But what happens is, we keep thinking, one day. And it doesn't happen. I mean, is that really any way to live? Why does that happen? Because there's no finish line. Or next week we're going to be looking at this idea of a finish line. And it happens because there's no finish line. We keep chasing a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. And it's just not there, but we keep pursuing it. And we tell ourselves it's just a busy season. It's just a busy moment. It's just the way it is right now. It's just the economy. It's just the climate. It's just this. It's just because the kids are young. It's just because this. It's just because, this is what's happening at work. It's because of a big project. It's this, it's that. There's always a reason why. There's always a reason why. Office is really good at giving us reasons to justify their desire to be with us all the time. And then we decide to get a little bit smarter with the way we work. And so we download an app, which is supposed to help us. But in reality, it increases our demand for efficiency and productivity. Because it's all of a sudden, it makes us able to do a lot more things easier and from more places. Because you can do your documents and your emails, and you can do everything anywhere all the time. And it's so much easier to do that. But actually, it just means you can get more done, because now you can work always, because you can always work. You can always work because you can always work. There's no reason not to be able to work. Whether you're commuting, traveling, anywhere. We can always work because we always can work. And so we do, because society has told us that that's what we need to do to be productive. That's what we need to do to be efficient. That's what we need to do to be contributing to everything. And the question again, is this really a good way to live? How much does it actually cost us to live like this? How much does it really cost us? And a question then is there actually a better way to live? A better way to go about living life? And we're doing a series at the moment called Cost of Living. And in the UK, we're in a cost of living crisis. You just have to open any of your news feeds at any moment, and it says we're in a cost of living crisis here in the UK. And we know that we're currently experiencing things. Costs are I got a letter 2 days ago from our internet provider saying they're now going to go up £7 a month. And they're changing the T's and C's. They're changing the terms and conditions, which are, this is not in the notes. They're changing the terms and conditions, and the terms and conditions are like this. Previously, the price was fixed, and if the price changed, you were then allowed to change without breaking the contract. Now, the new contract going forward is this. It will be a minimum increase of 3.9% plus RPI, retail price index. If the retail price index is 0, sorry, this is a bit boring, then your price is still going to go up by 3.9%. If the retail price index is 5, then it's 5% plus 3.9%. You're going to go up next year. Your price will go up by 8.9%. And the terms and conditions are now, because we've told you about it, you're not eligible to cancel the contract when we change the price halfway through the contract. So it's basically a way that companies can get around making sure that they increase prices even though you thought you were on a 3-year fixed deal or a 2-year fixed deal or whatever it was. Yeah, and whether you can afford it or not is irrelevant. It's basically saying we're all going to be experiencing increased costs. That's what's happening. We're all experiencing increased costs here in the UK. And we want to do as a local church a really practical series about how to just help and not make it all just about your money, but actually make it about living. Just make it about real life, And the first week, Christopher kicked off and he looked at how to live life free from worry and anxiety. And the last week, I looked at living with margin. And today I want to look at learning how to live with rest. Learning how to live with rest in our lives. Learning to say enough is enough. And being okay with that. Learning to do that. And I'm not really sure if culture at large is able to give us the wisdom and advice that we need. Because I look around culture at large and I look at how society functions, and it's actually producing an epidemic in humanity. It's not actually helping. It's actually making an epidemic, and we need some help. We need to learn to take a break. I don't know if you've seen this slide already, but Microsoft did a survey out of 11 countries. 20,000 employees, and their work trend index, this was done last year, their work trend index, and it says that 48% of employees and 53% of management said that they are experiencing burnout. That either way you cut it, it's basically half. last year, 20,000 surveys, 11 countries, as well as monitoring some of their back office data, Microsoft, looking at meetings and team. They looked at a whole bunch of stuff, essentially saying half of the people around the world say that they're living with burnout. So I don't know if the world can give us the wisdom that we need, because I'm thinking maybe it ain't working. If half of the people are saying, hey, it's too much, then maybe we need to think something else. We maybe need to look somewhere else. And maybe you're here today and you're just curious and you've been dragged along, or maybe you're watching and you're not sure how you stumbled onto this video. But I'm going to suggest that we look into an area for some wisdom which is really, 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 really old. We're going to look at wisdom from the Bible. And the Bible is a collection of books. Maybe you've never picked up a Bible, or maybe there's one on your grandma's shelf, I don't know. But the Bible is a book, which is actually more like a library, because it's got 66 different books put into one book. There's loads of different things in there. And there's stories and poetry and firsthand eyewitness accounts of the life of Jesus. There's just a whole bunch of stuff in there, and there's a whole collection of books. And we're going to jump into this story, this experience that took place a long time ago, a really long time ago. And there were these people called the Israelites, and they were the Jewish people. If you've ever studied religious studies, philosophy and ethics, you know this, the roots of Judaism. They were the early Jewish people when they were coming out of slavery. They were slaves in Egypt, and you might have seen a film called Prince of Egypt, or Ten Commandments, or Charlton Heston, and all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of the era that we're going to go back in time and see if there's actually a better way to live. See if there's some wisdom we can get from another source. Because when we're looking around and half of the population is essentially saying, I'm struggling because I'm burned out, we need to look for another source of wisdom. That's just my humble opinion. And I think the Bible can navigate for us. It can give us some wisdom. And there's this story about God speaking to his people. And you might think God is evil or absent, or what. I don't know what you think of God. Maybe you think God's just out to get you. Maybe you think God's out to punish you. Maybe you think God thinks you're just a screw up and a failure, and just, if only he could get rid of you. Or maybe you think God is just this cloud, this fluffy idea. You know, I don't know what your perception of God is, but here's this crazy thing that God gives this group of people, these Israelites. He wants to give them some guidelines for how to live their life, and it's this thing called the 10 Commandments. He gives them these instructions, which at the time were radical, by the way. They were way ahead of their time in terms of morality and sort of how legal systems ended up being developed. So it's interesting from a non-faith point of view to look at what it means as a society-shaping document, okay? And God gives these 10 commandments, these 10 rules that they should do, guidelines to help them live better lives, like, hey guys, you really shouldn't steal. And you know what? I'd also suggest don't commit adultery. Like, don't cheat on somebody else's wife. I mean it's like, well, actually, that kind of makes sense. You know, life will go better for you if you don't steal. Yeah, it will actually. Learn to not covet what somebody else has. Oh yeah, that could go better for me. And then of all these rules, maybe you think God's just about rules. He says, remember to take a day off. Like, take a day off? Like, what a weird rule to throw in a bunch of rules. Like, God is so caring and so loving and so good and looking after people. He says, in all of your work, make sure you take a day off. And it goes like this. It's in Deuteronomy, and it says this. It says, remember the Sabbath day. That was what they called it, the Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, just as God commanded. 6 days to do your labor and your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath day to the Lord your God. On it you shall do no ordinary work. And over the years, people have argued about, like, well, which is the seventh day? And that's kind of not the point. Days keep coming, okay? Tomorrow's going to be a new day, y'all. The point is, take a break. The point isn't make sure you do it on the specific day. That's just kind of an aside. Maybe you think God's all about making demands and making rules to ruin your life, and that he puts expectations on you that you could never, ever fulfill. Yet here he is setting out with his kindness, guidelines for your life so you can have a better life. That sounds like the kind of God that I would want to learn more about. When I find out that God's more for me than he is against me, that makes me lean in and want to learn a bit more about what he's like. When I find out he's saying, hey, in the rhythm of life, take a break. That's kind of cool. He says, remember to take a break. Remember. And just remember. Now, I don't know, I've got some fuel tanks here. You've all got a car. And if you don't have a car, you've been in a car. Have you ever run out of fuel? You ever done that? You think, oh, just a little bit more, I'm sure we can make it, you know. Maybe credit to you, the fuel gauge was broken, so it's not your fault at all. I don't know. Yeah, I remember we were on a holiday once as children, and we were going somewhere, and it was like when Dad was, we were trying to find a petrol station, and we were on a like a youth group trip. It was a bunch of guys. We were all going away. I think we were going camping or something. And then we're going down this hill, and my dad says, "Wait, everybody out." So we're like, huh? And he goes, "We need to push the car. We're like, it's going to stop." So the car actually like ran out of fuel. Yeah, it like totally stopped working. And we'd all jumped out of this car, and he's still sitting in there. And we were like behind it, like just a whole group of us trying to push this car. So we had to run to catch up with it after it sort of coasted down the hill. And then we all had to like try to push it up this hill to go over this next hill, because we had no idea where the next petrol station was. Thankfully, like once we crested that next hill, there was one ahead, because this is going, I mean, my dad didn't have things like sat navs. Of course, they didn't have those things. You know, they had those paper atlases that anyway. So we didn't have a sat nav. We could just press the button like, fuel tank, help me. So we were there, we were like pushing this car, and we were like in the summer. I remember it was hot, and in the South, it's hot. So, we were like dying, trying to push this car up the hill. We finally got to the petrol station, and it like just rolls into the petrol station, and he smiles and he's grateful as if he's done any work at all. He just got chauffeured, didn't he, by a chariot? Anyway, so it's not nice to run out of fuel, but when you're in a car, you've got this thing called a fuel gauge, and when your fuel gauge, maybe you've got a needle, maybe you've got a sort of electronic thing that goes up and down, you've got a light that comes on. I've even got a warning tone. I've got an imported car from Japan. It gives me a big Japanese like sign. It's like a big fuel tank, and I don't know what it says. I don't know. He's like, get fuel now, I tell you now. No, I don't know. It's like, you will die. Do it. So it's like, I don't know what it says, but it's Japanese anyway. And so ours has got this big digital thing that comes up on our screen saying, "Eh?" So we've got these warning signals, we've got these guides, but we don't acknowledge that in our own lives. We care more for our cars running on empty than for our own souls running on empty. And so he says, remember the Sabbath day. Don't forget. Remember, take a break. If you don't take a break, you will break. Take a break or you will break. That's hard, And the thing is, when we run out of fuel and the car starts to sputter, it doesn't run so well, and it judders, and it makes noise and it stutters. And it affects our family, doesn't it? Because when we start running on empty, we get more cranky, we get more emotional, we might get headaches, we might not be able to sleep, you get snarky, you get snappy. It's like, see, some other environment has taken all of your energies, and now we're running on empty, so all we've got is leftovers. And those who get the leftovers are those closest to us, our friends, our family. And those are warning lights when you're getting snarky and snappy. And if you don't believe me, just ask my family. This happens. Ask my kids, they'll tell you. Those are like warning lights. Warning lights. You're getting headaches. You're getting emotional. You're crying about things. You don't even know why I'm crying about it. Oh my gosh, why am I crying about it? I don't know. I just feel so emotional today. Like, these are like warning lights. Because God loves you so much that he made you with a gauge. He made you with systems, warning lights that can go off and say, hey, you're running on empty. I'd love to see you refreshed and refueled. Right, coffee. No, I'd love to see you refueled and refreshed. Power bar. Yeah, no dose. Right. No, I want to see you fully refreshed so your soul is refreshed. I want to see you functioning where you're living, not just striving. Remember the day and keep it holy. Remember to take a break. Remember to take a break. Now, I'm telling you these things, and I don't want you to think it's easy, because it's darn hard work. And I have to say, I struggle with this so much. This is not easy to do. It's not at all. It's incredibly difficult. And I can blame the fact that I have a wife and I have 4 children and we have 2 demanding jobs. I can give you all the reasons why. I can give you all the excuses why. But at the end of the day, I feel compelled to be productive and efficient all the time. And that's the honest truth. You see, the circumstances are that we have children. The circumstances are that there's things that have to be done at home, and there's things that have to be sorted, and things that have to be fixed. And that's the circumstance. That's true. But the real reason for me is because I feel I have to always be productive and always be efficient. It's a demand that doesn't ever go to sleep. And maybe that's not your challenge. Maybe for you that's not what it affects you. But I just want to be honest with you and say, look, I'm talking about these things as if they're funny and easy and simple, just a tank and a silly little bouncy ball. No. It's hard to do. It's hard to learn. And maybe that's why God says in his goodness, remember to take a break, or you will break. Remember the Sabbath day. A day off is holy. Okay, that's weird. Yeah. Maybe your idea of God was like places were holy and certain behaviors and certain things are holy, and all of a sudden he's saying, take a day off. It's holy. Well, I don't have to wow. Take a day off because it's holy. It's sacred. It's a gift from me to you. It's sacred. Whoa. How? You got to ask yourself, can I maintain the pace of life that we're living? Just be honest with yourself. If you can't, I would say that that's a little warning light on your fuel gauge. If you can't, something has to change. Something has to break, or you will break. If you can't maintain the pace, God cares for you and he wants you to enjoy life. He's given us life. Our God is for us. He's given you life to enjoy, life to experience, And this world will grind us down. It will, work becomes this heavy, crushing thing. But there's a better way to live, that we can learn to live. And we can learn to delight. We can learn to delight. Because the word Sabbath doesn't just mean to stop. It means to enjoy. So the Hebrew word that there's, Sabbath also means to stop, pause, but it also means to enjoy or to delight. I want to enjoy life. I don't think I'm the only one. Just going to go out on a limb here and think that we probably all want to enjoy life. Just a guess. We want to enjoy life, don't you? There's a better way. And I guess we got to learn. Last week I learned at how we have to create space financially, create margin in our lives financially. If you're financially able to save or financially able to give, then you've got margin. If you don't have margin in those two areas to measure, then you probably need to figure out how to help create some margin. And not only do we have to do it with our income, we have to do it with our time, don't we? We have to do it with our lives. And we want to be really practical and really helpful. And one of the ways that as a local church we're being helpful, and I did this course last year, a number of you did this as well. We're going to be running the money course again. You can sign up today for the money course. A really practical way to learn how to, assess your income. Increase your income, hopefully. I got some good tips last time from some people saying, oh, did you know that you can do pet insurance on Compare the Market? No, I did not. Guess what I did when I went home? I just saved 11 pounds a month on my pet insurance. Okay, I made 11 pounds a month just by deciding to go to this course. Okay, look, it's brilliant. And then one of the nice things as well is you don't have to put all your money on the table. No one's going to ask you how much you make and what your size of your credit card bill is and how many loans you have. It's not like that. It's more like giving you some helpful gauges, some helpful guidelines. So if you're interested in the course, or if you know anybody who would be interested in the course, I would encourage you, sign up. Trevor is here. If you have any questions, he facilitates the course. It's a really practical way to be able to just dig in a little bit more and find out more about your finances, because we believe following Jesus is practical because it affects the way we live and it affects the way we love. It affects our lives and it affects the way we care for others. And being able to do something like this is a way to love others and love one another, because I want to see you thrive in life. I want to see you soar in life. We want to see people in our community thrive. We want to see people in our community soar. And this is a super practical way to do that. So if you don't want to do it, book a friend in and come with your friend. But we have got to learn to create new habits. We have to learn to create new habits financially. We have to learn to create new habits with our time. And this takes courage. And this takes something that we don't like, which is called discipline or budget or limits. We have to recognize when the fuel gauge light goes on, we are hitting a limit. And we have to listen to it. We have to listen to it, And when Jesus was here on the earth, and he's talking to people who were following him, and this is a couple thousand years later after the story with Moses being given these 10 commandments. A couple thousand years later, Jesus is here. And in the Bible, that same library with 66 different books, and in the Bible there's this section which is like the second half called the New Testament. And in the New Testament you have these people who were eyewitnesses to everything that went on. So they write like biographies. So they wrote about their time that they experienced with Jesus when they were here with Jesus. And this guy Matthew recorded it and he wrote it down. He didn't know at the time that he was writing it would essentially be in a book that became the Bible. They didn't have a Bible then. He didn't know it was going to be like that. All he was doing is writing down what he was experiencing firsthand. And then he writes about this story that takes place in Matthew 11. And what happens is there's these people and they're saying to Jesus, they're like, are you really, really, really the one that we're looking for? Are you the one that we've been seeking and asking and longing and waiting for? Are you the one? And what they mean by that, are you the rescuer? Are you the Messiah? Are you the Savior? Are you the one that for thousands of years we have been aching and longing for? Are you the one? Are you like the main one? Really the one that we've been waiting for? And Jesus goes on to answer, and the way he answers the question, he says, let me just tell you what's going on. Blind people are being able to see again. Deaf people are being able to hear. Lepers have got clean skin. The lame are able to walk. Dead are coming back to life. And those who are poor and written off are being given good news. He answers the question by saying, just have a look at what's going on. And then carries on and talks about like how some people will listen and some people won't, and some people will acknowledge and some people won't. And that's the choice that we all have. Some of us have the choice. We can acknowledge Jesus or we can just say, meh, and move on. Okay? You're not forced to follow because you're not a robot. God loves you so much that he made you with the ability to think critically, and you should, and to feel, and you should. He's given you the choice. He trusts you to make a choice. He just gives you the options to choose. And so he says some people will choose and some people won't. And at the end of this Matthew 11 passage, he sort of draws it to a close, and he says this. And you might have heard this before if you grew up in a church. And what he says to us, he says, come to me. He gives us invitation. Come to me, all who are burned out. All who are part of that 50% that live life burnt out. Come to me. Are you weary? Are you worn out? Are you struggling to carry things that you can't carry? What are you living like? Come to me if you're burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I am gentle and humble, and you will find rest for your souls. Rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. If you just take a moment and think about it, and maybe you're still exploring faith, and you're not really sure about what Jesus is and if he really is a good or what anything. Can you just catch the heart of what he's just said? Hey, if you're weary, if you're worn out, if you are tired, if you are exhausted, if you are burnt out, if you are past the point of needing a break because you are already broken, come to me so I can help you have rest. And I'm not going to demand it of you, and I'm not going to punish you. Actually, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Let me do it with you. Learn from me. Because I'm not angry, I'm not judgmental, I'm not critical, I'm not waiting for you to fail. I am gentle and humble. That I'm actually giving you a picture that everybody would understand who lived at that time, because if you had an oxen, you would put 2 oxen on a yoke, because the 2 oxen would be clipped together, and the 2 oxen would plow the field, and the 2 oxen would pull the cart, and the 2 oxen would grind the grain as they went around in a circle, and they're connected one to the other. And Jesus isn't saying, do this for me or else. He's saying, let me come beside you, let me work with you. I'm gentle, I'm lowly in heart. Man, I'm just like a big fat ox. See, I don't know what your picture of God is. Maybe you've had an idea of God that's totally different to what you're experiencing. Because God is saying, I want to see you rest. I want to see you learn to work in a totally different way. And I don't expect you to do it on your own anymore. And I don't expect you to have all the answers. I don't expect you to have it all figured out, because I'm going to do it with you. Learn from me. I'm going to share the load. I'm going to carry this load. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, because it's a gift for you. Let me work with you. For my burden is easy. My yoke is light. My burden isn't perform for me. My burden isn't do everything right or else. My burden is love. My burden is grace. My burden is mercy. My burden is kindness. My burden is I want to work with you. With you. That's a totally different idea of God, and that's totally the kind of God that I would like to follow. A God that doesn't just sit there waiting for us to make mistakes and fail, but a God that gets down in the dirt and works with us. It's incredible. It's like following Jesus isn't a demanding work for me, but rather an invitation to work with me. Work with me, not work for me. Following Jesus is not like this type of master. It's a totally different master. One that sets you free, not chains you down. One that liberates you, not restricts you. We all got to serve somebody. Bob Dylan said it, right? We all got to serve somebody. I'd rather serve somebody who's there to set me free rather than tie me down. Wouldn't you? serve somebody that's here to release us, not restrict us, to restore us, not harm us. God is for you. God is for us. So much so that he's given you the ability to recognize when you've got warning lights going on in your life, and so much so that when you take a break, it's a gift from him. A gift. And let me tell you how good God is. You don't even have to be a follower of Jesus to appreciate this gift. There's a lot of people in the world who basically 2 fingers to Jesus, get rid of, I don't care about you in my life. But they still reap the benefit of rest. They still reap the good gift that they've been given, and they don't even recognize that the gift came from God. That's how good God is, that he gives gifts to us. One of the things I found interesting about this idea about when we take a break, and maybe this applies to you, I don't know. Sometimes as followers of Jesus, we think to take a break, we then cut out community, or maybe we don't come on a Sunday, or we don't get involved in a small group, or we sort of pull out of those types of things. And I would just encourage you and challenge you. If the way to learn rest is when we learn from him, don't give up on this. Don't give up on learning community together. If you need to find margin in your life, the thing you cut out is not the opportunity to learn more from him. And maybe that applies to you, maybe it doesn't. Learning that this environment is a gift for us to learn more from him. And when we learn more from him, we learn to be more refreshed. So if you are trying to take a break, and the biggest thing that you can use to take a break is to avoid connecting in community or gathering in this setting, I would just challenge you and say, try to find something else. Maybe there's other areas in your life that you need to learn to pull back. Learn from me. Jesus is saying we can't run on empty. We're going to wrap up and close now. He's saying to us first just to learn to stop and delight in him. Learn from him because he's gentle. Learn from him because he's kind. Learn from him because he's loving. Learn from him because he's not demanding. All of a sudden, it just sounds like the best boss I could ever work for. Doesn't it? Learn from me, and I will give you rest to your souls. And the cost of living is so high. If we live in a constant state of productivity and efficiency, it will kill our souls. It will kill something in us. Maybe it's already destroyed something in you. Maybe more than anything, you just need refreshing. And we're going to close now. I'm just going to pray for you. And I'm going to pray that more than anything, you are refreshed today. That you begin to have a lightening of your load. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much that you are kind and good. So kind and so good that you actually are interested in how we live our lives and how we go about our daily work and our businesses. Thank you that of all the rules you gave us, you also gave us a guideline to remind us to take a break. And I just pray for everyone here, but specifically, God, anyone that feels like, you know what, I'm there. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I'm empty. God, I thank you that you've provided a way for them. I ask for your strength to be with them, your refreshing, your release. Be with them, please, Father. If anyone here this morning who's wondering if you're actually a God worth following, then I hope today might have helped change your perspective. That you are a God worth learning more about. And in your name we pray. Amen. If there's anything we can do for you, if we can journey together, we would love to do that. If you have any questions about faith, any stuff like that, every question and any question is allowed. We would love to just walk and journey together. If you got kiddos, I know we went a little bit longer today with everything that happened. But if you got kiddos across the street, please collect them. Otherwise, hang out, grab another drink, grab a coffee, whatever you got going on. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll be back next week. Cool. Thank you.